As new details of the suspect in Charlie Kirk's assassination emerge, the question remains, did he think he would get away with it? I'm Elizabeth Vargas, and America's News starts right now.
Tonight, the man accused of killing Charlie Kirk in cold blood is reportedly not cooperating with police, but that's not stopping officials from gathering new details about his life.
He sort of led a very normal life, a life of, great education, schools, everything else, but somewhere along the line something happened.
Was Tyler Robinson radicalized on the internet? And if so, by who? Then 1 year ago, President Trump survived a second assassination attempt. Why is the suspect representing himself in court? And who will he call to the witness stand when the prosecution rests its case? And later, the U.S. military strikes another boat allegedly carrying drugs from Venezuela to the U.S. Trump tells cartels they'll be hunted down if they try to smuggle drugs into the country. But will this plan work, and is it legal?
Hello, everyone. Great to have you with us. We begin tonight in Utah with the latest developments in the murder investigation into conservative activist Charlie Kirk. Authorities are still working to figure out why a 22-year-old man from a conservative family, a scholarship-winning student whose neighbors said was a good kid, turned violent and went on to allegedly gun down Kirk at a Utah Valley University rally. Today, FBI Director Kash Patel offered brand new details that could offer an explanation.
His family has collectively told investigators that he subscribed to left-wing ideology, and even more so in these last couple of years. And he had a text message exchange, he, the suspect, with another individual, in which he claimed that he had an opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and he was going to do it because of his hatred for what Charlie stood for.
Now, that follows comments from Utah's Governor Spencer Cox this weekend, who said that Tyler Robinson became radicalized by the deep, dark internet and the gaming culture. President Trump echoed that from the White House just a few hours ago.
Looks like he became radicalized over the internet, and it seems like he has wonderful parents, brought in a wonderful neighborhood, smart guy, great boards, great marks, great student. And then something happened to him over a fairly short period of time. It looks like he was radicalized over the internet.
The FBI director also shared today that investigators have found physical evidence linking Tyler Robinson to the assassination. His DNA was found on a towel that was wrapped around the bolt-action rifle supposedly used in the shooting, as well as on a screwdriver found on the rooftop where the single deadly shot was fired. Meanwhile, as the murder investigation continues, tributes are still pouring in from across the country to honor Charlie Kirk's legacy, most notably from the White House. Today, Vice President J.D. Vance hosted a special edition of Kirk's podcast. He brought on everyone from Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to conservative commentator Tucker Carlson. Behind the mic, Vance said the entire administration is working tirelessly to leave no stone unturned in the investigation, as he eulogized his close personal friend.
Filling in for somebody who cannot be filled in for, but I'm going to try to do my best. Every single person in this building, we owe something to Charlie. He was a joyful warrior for our country. He loved America. He devoted himself tirelessly to making our country a better place.
All right, let's kick things off now with NewsNation's Alex Capriello live for us in Orem, Utah. Alex, this suspect is expected to appear in court tomorrow, where he will hear formal charges against him. We're also hearing he's not cooperating with police.
Yeah, tomorrow is going to be a massive day with a lot of breaking information as we wait to get any little tidbit new from investigators related to where this investigation stands. Before I get into that, I want to quickly show you something that was just draped right here at the site of where Charlie Kirk was assassinated a little less than a week ago. You could see this massive American flag that now hangs at Utah Valley University. A lot of changes that have come here. They've ripped up the ground where his tent was currently located. Instead, have put these new pavers on, and as you can see, see a massive tribute to our country right here in this moment, as staff were welcomed back to the university today, with students invited to come back on Wednesday. We still don't know a motive behind this attack, but hopefully we get more information tomorrow, as you mentioned, when we have a press conference and a first court appearance for Tyler Robinson right here in Orem. What we do know is confirmed by NewsNation sources with the Department of Justice. We expect federal charges to also be filed at some point, potentially even tonight, but most certainly in the days to come. Aside from that, at the state level, we expect 3 separate charges for tomorrow: aggravated murder, felony use of a weapon, as well as obstruction of justice. You made a good point there. The latest that we're hearing from investigators is that the family and the friends are fully cooperating with this investigation, but as for the suspect himself, the alleged shooter, he is not cooperating with police. Also, memorials growing all across the country, from Turning Point USA headquarters in Phoenix to Chicago, where he's originally from, to right here at the university. We do know Charlie Kirk's funeral planned for this Sunday in Phoenix. Elizabeth?
That will be quite a thing, that funeral. Alex Capriella, thank you. To Capitol Hill now, where just moments ago, House Speaker Mike Johnson led a vigil for Charlie Kirk. It comes as Kirk's assassination is leading to extreme anxiety among lawmakers. They're not only concerned about how to tone down political violence in the country, they're also worried about their own personal safety. Those fears are leading some of them on both sides of the aisle to question whether they should even be holding public events. Let's go right now to NewsNation's Joe Khalil, live for us at Capitol Hill. Joe, Congressman Mark Alford was on this show on Friday night telling me he was going to cancel all his town halls and public events going forward. I can't imagine he's the only one doing this.
No, he's certainly not. I talked to a whole bunch of lawmakers today, Elizabeth, who said they're considering that. Others have said that they used to announce their public events days, weeks in advance, and now maybe it's a day or two. I've heard from lawmakers they worry less about themselves and more about their own families. One person said it makes the hair on the back of their neck stand up when they talk about the threats they've gotten to their offices, where they specifically reference these members' families, children's names, home addresses. So obviously, the threat environment right now is very serious. Before we get into that, I also just want to play one quick soundbite from Speaker Mike Johnson moments ago at a vigil that they held for Charlie Kirk just outside of the House chamber.
Charlie was a happy warrior. What I loved about Charlie the most is even though he could win any debate, he never held it against anyone on the other side of the table. We should not be overcome by evil, but we should overcome evil with good. That is the legacy of Charlie Kirk.
So we'll go back to Speaker Johnson here in a second. We're talking about this threat environment. The question is, what are lawmakers going to do to provide themselves more security? And there are a number of options on the table. Right now, they're getting about $5,000 every month per office. And the reason they're getting that money now, Elizabeth, is because back in June, after the assassination of Melissa Hortman, the state lawmaker in Minnesota, lawmakers demanded more security. They got it, but that expires at the end of this month. So the question is, what comes next? And again, I talked to Speaker Johnson one-on-one as he came into the Capitol today. This is what he told me about what comes next.
In the wake of Charlie Kirk's death, are you pushing the $5,000 member security extension?
We got a number of options on the table for enhanced member security, so we're going to talk that through with the members and see where the consensus is.
Have you heard more concerns about members feeling their own safety might be in danger?
Yeah, quite a bit. So we've got to address it, and we got some ideas to do that.
And he told us later a number of options are on the table. He wants to talk not just to Republicans, but to Democrats too, get everyone's input there. The White House, meantime, is asking for $58 million in security for the executive branch and the judicial branch. So all of that, Elizabeth, is likely going to be in whatever the next government funding package is. They have a deadline by the end of the month. They got to get it done. So we're going to find out very soon here what the safety protocols are going to look like.
Yeah. Wow. Clearly, everybody is feeling it. Everybody wants more security, and that is going to come at a very high price. Joe Khalil, thanks so much. Let's bring in our law enforcement experts now. Jim Clemente is a retired FBI special agent and an FBI profiler. He's also a former prosecutor. And Michael Matrenga is a former Secret Service agent. He's a school safety and security expert. Great to have both of you here. Jim, I'm going to start. I've got a few questions to you first about this suspect. Before Tyler Robinson was arrested, you had actually said that the killer was likely going to be a loner who lacked social skills and kept to themselves and had pent-up anger. Everything we're learning about Robinson seems to fit that profile. He spent most of his time online, playing video games. Almost his entire social interaction was online. He even reportedly went online after the assassination and joked with his buddies about the murder. What does that tell you?
Well, he's an inexperienced criminal. He obviously was unable. He lacked the social skills to actually address his frustrations and his angers in a amenable way. He chose instead to lash out in a very violent way. He took a human life, and that clearly speaks to his inability to address these issues in a normal human way.
But when you dive into some of these chat rooms on Discord or these other gaming platforms and you read what all these men, you know, we've heard from many of them, they spend all day, every day in there. They're not actually out in the real world talking and interacting with people. They're on the internet interacting online with people. And when you read these messages, there's a palpable sense of nihilism, a burn it down attitude among a population of young men who are clearly disaffected. What makes someone, though, actually put down the gaming controller and go pick up the rifle and do something?
Well, Elizabeth, it's a very complicated mix of bio, psycho, and social. Genetics gives somebody the potentiality. Genetics loads the gun. Personality and psychology aims it, and experiences pull the trigger. So it's a combination of all three of those things, the perfect storm. So he had the potential to do this, but he leaned into that dark side. He leaned into everything that he was talking about, everything negative that he could, and then let the experiences basically be filtered that way. Maybe he had an opportunity to talk this out with somebody, but instead he decided to turn violent because he thought it was going to make himself feel better. It was going to improve his own self-image, and that's really what he wanted to do.
And Jim, something seems to have happened in this young man's life shortly after his first semester at college. Prior to that, he was a straight-A student in high school, won a full scholarship to Utah State, where he lasted just one semester and dropped out. He then returns home, and at that point, the family says he starts spending a lot of time online and starts to get radicalized. This is a big gap so far in the investigation. What happened?
Well, I think at some point, his family seems to be very straightforward, very religious, very moral. And he, at some point, felt like he didn't fit in. And so he had to look elsewhere for family, for connection, for approval. And I think, unfortunately, he chose a group of people or a group of ideological standards that became more and more aggravated and more violent. And that choice is what drove him to pull that trigger.
And sorry, just one more question, Jim, before I get to Michael. Thank you for your patience, Michael. Jim, could also the fact that his roommate with whom he was having a romantic relationship and is reportedly transgender, that can't have been easy in a small Mormon town in southern Utah. Could that have played a role in this somehow?
Well, I'm sure it could have helped to the feeling of him not fitting in and feeling inadequate, and then wanting to do something big to compensate for that.
All right, and we should point out that roommate has been fully cooperative with police so far in their investigation. Michael, we just heard Joe talking about this. There's intense fear, not just among lawmakers on Capitol Hill. The executive branch is asking for more money. They want more security. This is the threat environment, which is a term I think Secret Service agents like yourself used, seems to be extreme, like we're as high as it gets right now.
It does, and I don't think that anybody should be surprised that both representatives on both sides of the aisle from both parties have some serious and genuine concerns. I mean, we've had 10 to 15 years of divisive political rhetoric where individuals spoke very recklessly, and I think that I'm a Texas kid, and people always say, "Hey, the chickens come home to roost." And I think the chickens are coming home to roost, unfortunately, for the American people and for our political landscape. And so, I really hope that, unfortunately, it cost a man his life. I really hope that we can all put our differences aside and bring some normalcy back to America so that we can progress forward as a nation.
Yeah, you specialize also in school safety and school security. There's been a lot of conversation and a lot of criticism, honestly, about the lack of security at this event on UVU's campus. Do colleges need to change how they approach political events like this?
I think that every environment needs to change the way they approach security, whether it be a college campus, a mall, most public events, concerts. We've seen these things happen and play out in large events. The days of physical security just being close protection are over. When the average American thinks about an assassination, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Mostly it's a long-range lone wolf attacker. Why, and listen, I'm not in the business of really criticizing, we really need to find solutions, but why anybody with any protective background who were covering Mr. Kirk or anybody else that what we would classify as a polarizing political person would think that a long-range attack was not capable, especially in an open-air environment with all of the elevated platforms surrounding this individual, is beyond me. I said it in December when Brian Thompson was assassinated, and I will say it again tonight. What would have probably kept Mr. Kirk safe is a $15 an hour unarmed spotter on top of that roof, just providing observation and communicating back to the team that there was someone that had breached the roof.
Somebody who was on the roof, somebody with a rifle, all of which would have been clearly visible to somebody had they been on that roof looking out. Hey, Jim, I'm curious about one thing. We do know that according to the FBI director, Tyler Robinson texted one friend and wrote a note that he later destroyed, saying that he was planning on going through with this murder, that he had this opportunity and that he was going to take it. In any way, could this have been a test balloon of sorts, like gauging the reaction to this?
Sure. I think he was testing the waters and also building up reserve and courage to actually commit the act. This is something we expect from somebody that's inexperienced. There is a need and a desire to sort of test the waters when this isn't something you do every day. And I believe we expected that, and that's exactly what we found.
Well, we will hopefully get more answers to our questions tomorrow. It is still a mystery as to what exactly radicalized this young man, who it was. We do know, apparently, from all sources now that it happened online in the basement or the living room of his own home or apartment, where he rarely got out and rarely interacted with human beings. It's really incredibly tragic.
Elizabeth, may I have 5 seconds?
Absolutely.
I think this is important. This is important to talk about, whether it be, this particular incident or schools. The United States Secret Service's National Threat Assessment Center has had the answers to the playbook in regards to these for at least 30 years. We're failing to understand that in order to prevent this, it comes through proactive measures, and reaction simply is just not enough anymore. We have to put our trust and our faith in the security individuals to be doing a thorough advance. And this is the pathway to violence, whether it be this incident or others. There's a progressive behavior that is always there, and we have to start paying attention to that.
Michael Matranga, Jim Clementi, thank you, gentlemen, both, for sharing your expertise with us.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Elizabeth.
it. All right,
Thank
coming
you.
up for us, how do we
Appreciate it.
bridge the political divide that seems to be wider than ever after Kirk's assassination? Geraldo and Batia join me live next to discuss. Plus, new details in the trial of would-be presidential assassin Ryan Routh. What did investigators find in his car? We're live outside the federal courthouse in Florida with the very latest from that trial taking place. And later, President Trump's stark warning to drug cartels tonight as he shares video of another U.S. military strike on an apparent drug boat from Venezuela. Joining us now is Batia Ungar-Sargon, author, journalist, and host of Batia on NewsNation, and Geraldo Rivera, NewsNation correspondent at large. Great to have both of you here. So, Batia.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi, Geraldo. Prove me wrong, as Charlie would say.
Welcome, Batia.
What do you make of the reaction that people know? I know the Democratic Party isn't celebrating his murder, but the fact that so many people who are members of the party and are the far left are openly posting these videos is backfiring big time.
So I hope all of the Democrats watching are going to take to heart the story you just told about the two young men. That is a harbinger, I think, of what is to come. People do feel that the Democratic Party leadership has, in a way, encouraged the dehumanization of people on the other side. They called speech violence. They called their political opponents Nazis and fascists. You put those things together, and that is a permission structure to commit violence. I just want to make one more brief point. There's a lot of calls for unity now. I love calls for unity. There's also people saying both sides are to blame. This is a problem of political violence on both sides. I want to just explain briefly why this is so offensive to people on the right to hear right now. It's because it is not true. It is asking them to bear the burden of the guilt that harmed them before Charlie's body has even been buried. They are being asked to assume half of the guilt for a crime committed against their side, the likes of which there just is no parallel from right-wing violence to left.
Geraldo, do you buy that there's no parallel? I mean, we had a Democratic congressman gunned down, another lawmaker gunned down, Josh Shapiro's mansion firebombed. What do you make of it?
Right.
And Batya's point.
Well, and first of all, Batya, welcome. First time we've been on the show together. Welcome. You have a brilliant. I'm sure you have a brilliant career here at NewsNation. I remember a lot of, when you get to be my age, you have a lot of memories and they kind of conflate. I remember when I was in the student union at the University of Arizona, went up on the TV screen, relatively rare occurrence to have a TV screen in those days, John F. Kennedy's assassination was playing out. And what I remember was I could not believe that this could actually happen. Oh, of course, I knew history, from long ago, but history was long ago. It wasn't relevant to me to actually see this person that I cared for, this person that I admired, that I hoped someday to emulate, or just someone who filled my heart with patriotism, that he was gone, that he was dead. It was just such an utter wake-up call to me. I could not believe it. In terms of two sides and whether or not there's equal guilt, or whether or not can't we all have a moment, even though, Batya, you probably are correct in a very real sense, and I understand your rage at having the right demonized by being mixed in with the left. I think that this is the time, and this is what I would like to preach, where we give people a break, where we say, okay, this is what's happening. We have a very polarizing political structure right now. If the Republicans totally control Washington, the blue states are feeling very insecure. They're feeling very assailed. They don't know what to make of the future. This is probably a time where, and my heart goes out to, and I've said it every minute I've been on the air since Charlie Kirk's death, that my heart goes out to him and his family. This is a horrible, horrible thing. Would that it would never again be repeated. And may his memory be a blessing. Yet, when the president says it's only you and it's not you, and there's too many, I know that the yous and the yous are too mixed in. There's too many good guys and not so good guys on both sides. I think that is a truth. I mean, you see his family, my God, your heart breaks. Anyone with children, your heart breaks.
I was struck by...
But I think we got to give a little.
I think obviously something needs to change, and yet it feels like things are hardening. Congressman Marjorie Taylor Greene wrote on X today, there is nothing left to talk about with the left. They hate us. Our country is too far gone and too divided, and it's no longer safe for any of us. She called for a national divorce. I don't even know what that means.
Has one Democrat come out and said, I apologize for calling Trump Hitler? Has one Democrat come out and said, I apologize for calling Charlie Kirk, hateful or spreading hate speech? Has one Democrat come out and said, I regret saying that the right are all fascists and Nazis? No. So I want to take this arm that's being held out to me in unity. But, you can ask for unity instead of revenge, and you should. You cannot ask for unity at the price of the truth. And I am being asked, in order to take that hand, to co-sign a lie that there is no guilt at the upper echelons of the Democratic Party, which brings me back to those two young men you started with.
Geraldo, you get the last word.
Geraldo, you can't apologize because you never said it. But what about AOC who said it? And what about Kamala Harris who said it? And what about Joe Biden who said it? And what about Chris Murphy who said it? What about Gavin Newsom who said we're going to punch them in the face a week ago? Where's the apology?
When President Trump says of the left that they're scum, where's the apology there? Is that appropriate?
You can ask me that.
When did that ever? When have we ever had a president? And I love the guy. When have we ever had a president who would say of a whole group, they're scum? It is so demeaning. It's so casting aspersions in a way that it's almost sinful. I think it really is so absolutely inappropriate in the leader of the free world that my head's gonna. But
Joe Biden called all Republicans white supremacists. That's the exact same thing. And when Donald Trump says something, he did. He's called MAGA white supremacists. When Donald Trump says something and it leads, God forbid, to an assassination of a huge figure, then I will apologize. Then that will be the time to ask me for the apology. But right now, the greatest avatar on the right was murdered in cold blood because he told his family the exact same things that every major Democrat says on the regular. That's where the guilt is.
All right. Batya Ungar-Sargon, Geraldo Rivera, we're not going to settle it here, even though I wish we could.
I still love you.
Because if anybody could.
Same here.
Yeah. Thank you both. I appreciate it. All right, coming up for us, we're going to go live outside the federal courthouse in Florida, where week 2 of Ryan Routh's trial is underway. The man accused of trying to assassinate President Trump is representing himself in court. That's not going well. Jesse Weber joins us with the latest next. As headlines continue to swirl around last week's assassination of Charlie Kirk and details of his alleged murderer, Tyler Robinson, emerge, it may be hard to remember that 1 year ago today, an assassination attempt on Donald Trump's life was dominating the headlines. Then candidate Trump was playing a round of golf in Florida when prosecutors say an eagle-eyed Secret Service agent spotted Routh, the would-be assassin, as he was hiding in the bushes and pointing a rifle at him. Now, Routh is defending himself in his case against a roster of federal charges that include attempted assassination. He faces a possible life sentence if he's convicted. The court proceedings are moving very rapidly, largely because Routh is representing himself. He has no legal background. Routh has rarely objected to testimony from prosecution witnesses, most of whom are FBI and Secret Service agents, and he's only briefly cross-examining any of them. Today, one FBI agent testified about the black Nissan Xterra that Routh was driving when he was pulled over and arrested after the alleged incident. For more, let's go to NewsNation correspondent Brooke Schaefer, who's covering the trial in Fort Pierce. Brooke, what else happened in court today, and how is Routh doing as is representing himself in court like this?
Yeah, well, we'll start with what the jury saw today, Elizabeth. They went through a lot of physical evidence as the prosecution here really tries to lay out what they have described as a meticulous plan by Ryan Routh to kill President Trump. The jury saw a lot of that evidence you mentioned found in the suspect's car, things like zip ties, multiple phones, even a bullet casing in the glove box. Investigators also found the suspect's passport and a handwritten note with information on flights to Mexico and Canada. The jury also saw a bunch of receipts from Routh's car from places near Trump's golf course in West Palm Beach. Prosecutors say this proves Routh thought about this for a while. They say he visited Trump's golf course at least 17 times before the alleged assassination attempt. Now, as for how Routh is doing in court, today he appeared engaged as he continues to represent himself. We saw him taking notes throughout the day, as he has the last couple of days. But Elizabeth, he hasn't objected yet. He actually hasn't objected once in this trial. In fact, the judge has stepped in and objected for him at least 5 times today alone. This trial is moving very quickly, Elizabeth. It was slated to last about 3.5 weeks. The prosecution says it could rest by the end of this week. Elizabeth?
Wow. Brooke Schaefer, thank you so much from Florida, where the trial is happening. For more, I'm joined by Jesse Weber, NewsNation legal contributor and Law and Crime Network host. The judge has stepped in 5 times to object on his behalf. This almost seems... It seems ridiculous that he's doing this.
Now, to be clear, she is not on his side.
No.
Because she has also said to him with respect to his questioning of witnesses and even his opening statement and who he's going to call next, she's giving him very little leeway. Criminal defendants, they're not given a blank pass to just do whatever they can. So it's interesting that she's stepping in to help him somewhat. But I will tell you, I mean, it is interesting, his cross-examination. I'll give you an example. So today was all about what was found in his car. Food, toiletries, mattress.
He was basically living in his car.
Living in his car, which is consistent with the idea that he was staking out the golf course for 10 hours. He had a list of where Donald Trump, or allegedly a list of where Donald Trump was going to be visiting. What did he cross-examine these witnesses about? Well, how do you know this had to do with Donald Trump? I spent some time in Ukraine. Maybe my note about a tourniquet was about that. Do you know how long these items have been in my car? And the witness said, yeah, we have receipts. We have receipts for a lot of this information. So look, he's not trained. This is why he should have legal representation. But yeah, it's moving fast and it's not looking good.
He is supposed to, prosecution's getting ready to rest their case because he's like asking practically nothing on cross-examination. Then he starts his case. Is he calling any witnesses?
That's what's so interesting, right? So he intends to call a firearms examiner. Why? I would imagine to suggest that the gun was not in working condition, even though the prosecution presented an expert to say it was in working condition. Oh, by the way, they said his fingerprint was on the scope. Another bad piece of evidence.
So we have physical, I mean, this is as close to a slam dunk case as it gets.
It got a little tense because he said he wanted to call his son, who's been on record before and said, my dad's great. I've never seen him violent, kind of like a character witness. The problem is, he said, I might not actually call him. Judge Cannon said, well, he's already in transport. You have to make your decision. You're wasting taxpayer money. The problem is, I was like, why would anyone want to call him? His son was sentenced to 7 years in prison for child pornography. Yeah. Maybe not the best witness to call on your behalf.
Yeah, especially because it's a character witness.
Yeah, probably not great. But again, legal training is important here. But look, it just keeps adding up. And I wonder if he's trying to suggest really what was his plan that day? What was he doing? I mean, hiding in the bushes and pointing a gun. I mean, the first witness to testify was a Secret Service agent who basically was in fear for his life and acted so quickly. Thank goodness no shot was fired off, allegedly by the defendant. But it was just a really, really distressing scene.
Has anything been uncovered about a motive? Because sort of like the Charlie Kirk case, where it's unclear, there's a big hole in Tyler Robinson's life. We don't know what led him to drop out of school and become radicalized online. Do we know? Is the prosecution? I know they don't have to. Prosecutors do not have to say why you did this. But I'm curious if it's come up at trial.
A little bit. I mean, we know that he has this background with a fascination about what was happening with Ukraine.
He'd been to Ukraine.
He'd been to Ukraine. He was no fan of President Trump, but that's not something even the prosecution has to rely on. We talk about it so many times. You maybe need to sell a motive in order to convince the jury that someone would commit a crime like this. But with the plethora of evidence you see right now, they don't really need it.
Yeah. All right. Jesse Weber. Wow. I can't believe it might be over as soon as this week.
Yeah.
Coming up, President Trump is not waiting to intercept drugs at the border. He's now, he says, going to the source. The U.S. military just struck a second boat allegedly carrying drugs from Venezuela to the U.S. Will this strategy work, and is it legal? We're live at the White House next. Tonight, we're learning new details of a new U.S. military strike on what President Trump is calling Venezuelan narco-terrorists in the international waters. The president posted this video to Truth Social this afternoon showing a boat suddenly consumed by a massive fireball. He said 3 people were on the vessel and they were killed while in the midst of transporting illegal drugs from Venezuela to the U.S. This military move comes 2 weeks after another strike on an alleged carrying drug boat in the Caribbean, and that killed 11 people. President Trump made his message to the cartels clear, saying, quote, "We are hunting you." NewsNation's Kelly Meyer is live at the White House tracking all of this. And Kelly, the president just addressed this moments ago in the Oval Office. Is he providing, because in both cases, people were asking for some sort of proof of what was on the board, who was on the boat. Did he provide any of that, or how did he address it?
And that's exactly what he was talking about there inside the Oval Office. You hit right there on it, Elizabeth. There has been really no evidence as to what was on board both of these vessels. And as you mentioned, this is nearly 2 weeks, the second time in nearly 2 weeks that the U.S. has targeted an alleged drug smuggling boat coming out of Venezuela, ratcheting up tensions with the country. Here's what the president had to say about proof.
We have proof. All you have to do is look at the cargo that was, like, it's spattered all over the ocean. Big bags of cocaine and fentanyl all over the place. And it was, plus we have recorded evidence that they were leaving.
So President Trump said they'll stop the cartels by land, just as they are doing by sea. And we've seen the military presence really ratchet up in recent weeks in the Southern Caribbean to take on what the administration is calling its crackdown of drug cartels. Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro, is saying that this is aggression coming from the U.S. and communication between the two governments has been thrown away. And the president also isn't ruling out targeting the mainland of Venezuela as well. When asked about the likelihood of a U.S. strike, he said, quote, "We'll see what happens." Elizabeth.
Wow. All right. Kelly Meyer reporting live from the White House tonight. Thank you. Coming up for us, much more on the very latest into the investigation into Charlie Kirk's assassination. Chris Cuomo joins me live. All right, back now with our continuing coverage of the assassination of Charlie Kirk and the incredibly divided political fallout, both politically across the country and the reaction to this. Chris Cuomo joins me now live. Chris, I know you're going to tackle this. You know, I was talking with Batya and Geraldo about this because I was telling them that I spoke with a couple people over the weekend who were so appalled by the far left celebration of this assassination that they were like, "I'm done with the Democratic Party." And I pointed out the Democratic Party leaders have all condemned this. And they said, "I don't care. It is so reprehensible to have, even though they're agitators and they're extreme, to have them celebrating this, that it feels like it poisons the entire party for them." What do you make of that?
I think it is the fringe few. I think it's social media. I think it's a loss of virtue, a lack of leadership. I'm tired of people telling me I'm going to be next and saying obnoxious things on the street and around my kids because they think it's okay, because this is where we are. And this is a very, very hard time. And this is fragile because we have to make a decision about what this moment means and about whether or not it's going to take us somewhere better or worse. And I don't like the way it's trending right now, and that's what I'm going to talk about right now.
And people actually come up to you. We're not talking about keyboard warriors who say obnoxious things anonymously.
They don't come up to me. They don't come up to me because, you know, I don't look the way I do on this TV screen in person. But people are ugly, and they're angry, and I get it. Yeah. But at some point, we got to remember that you have to be more than your worst moments.
Yeah.
At some point, somebody's going to want to use what's wrong and try to do something right. And I just don't know where it's going to come from, because it's not coming from the top, that's for sure.
Sure isn't. All right. Very sobering. Listen, I know you'll get into it. Have a great show.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.